Kumiko Oumae. To me, a character who has one of the most impactful and inspiring journeys in anime. Today, I'm going to explain what makes Kumiko such a great character and deep dive into the different aspects of her writing. I'll explore her characterization, development, and the dynamics and bonds that she forms with her fellow cast members. Before I get into this, make sure you slap that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss another analysis. When looking at Kumiko's character, probably the most important place to start is her past trauma. When Kumiko was in middle school, she was bullied for displaying her musical talent by a senpai who was jealous that she didn't make the team. Kumiko was gaslighted into believing that it was her fault that the senpai didn't make the team. This verbal abuse scarred Kumiko mentally and plays a big role in her character. Let's fast forward to season 1 and introduce the concept of affinity seeking. Affinity seeking is a process where individuals try to get other people to feel positive towards them. Kumiko displays this trait heavily throughout season 1. She tells people what they want to hear, apologizes for things that aren't her fault, and sacrifices her own feelings for the validation of others. Even when it comes to music, she suppresses her ability and tries to blend in with the crowd. So why does Kumiko do this? The main reasons are fear and trauma. As I said earlier, she was verbally abused by her senpai. Kumiko never wants to experience that trauma again, and so she tries to get validation from everyone and keep everyone happy. Kumiko is afraid that if she shows her quote-unquote true self, then she's going to relive her past trauma. Now if you pay attention to Kumiko closely, you'll see that the kind, humble girl who likes to help people facade that she puts up isn't her true self. Kumiko is actually very morally gray. Let's look at a primary example of her true self, the first scene in Sound Euphonium. When Kumiko sees Reina crying because their ensemble didn't win gold, the first thing she asks Reina was, "Did you really think we can make nationals?" Given the context, this is a very harsh thing to say. When they were on the mountain, Reina even points out how that's a terrible thing to say to someone, and Kumiko still doubles down on her statement. The only reason that Kumiko ever felt bad for what she said to Reina is because she's an affinity seeker. She cares about how Reina perceives her, and she wanted her validation. Let's talk about another aspect of Kumiko's character, apatheism. Apatheism is a philosophical approach to life where someone portrays a lack of interest. At the beginning of Sound Euphonium, Kumiko portrayed apatheism heavily. She didn't care about music and only joined the ensemble because of her friends. She had no motivation, no goals, and was completely complacent with just existing. Once again, this ties back to the abuse she received from her senpai. Music was a huge part of Kumiko's identity when she was younger. However, after the incident, she started to suppress her passion for music, thus suppressing her identity and becoming apathetic. So when does everything start to change for Kumiko? Well, it all starts with our deuteragonist Reina Kosaka. At the beginning of the story, Reina and Kumiko are complete opposites. Kumiko was someone who didn't care about anything and often resorted to affinity seeking because she was scared of showing her true self. On the other hand, Reina is someone with a strong sense of identity who hates the idea of conforming to other people's standards for validation. Reina is someone who wants to become special, while Kumiko is someone who just wants to blend in with the crowd. One of the main differences between Kumiko and Reina is mental strength. Reina is strong enough mentally to not care what people think about her, which allows her to be her true self. Kumiko, on the other hand, cares what everyone thinks about her. She has this affinity-seeking mentality because she's not strong enough mentally to not care what people think about her. She's afraid that she'll be put in a position where she gets bullied for displaying her talents or being honest to the people around her. Another difference between Reina and Kumiko is how they view life. Reina is someone who's very idealistic, someone who believes in chasing dreams even if they seem improbable. Kumiko, on the other hand, had a very realist view on life. She's someone who would base things off of objectivity and what's realistic. The perfect example of their ideologies clashing is in the first scene of Sound Euphonium, where Kumiko asks Reina, "You really thought we could make nationals?" Reina's idealism led her to believe that they actually had a chance at qualifying for nationals, while Kumiko's realism led her to believe that they had no shot at qualifying for nationals. Their ideological differences show us why they're different. Reina's idealism led her to chase her dreams, while Kumiko's realism led her to this apathetic mentality. Now, despite their differences, Reina is the one person in the ensemble who understands Kumiko. She knows what it's like to receive backlash for showing her musical talent. She understands how it feels to conform to other people's standards. She's the only person at Kitauji High School who's seen Kumiko's true self and the only one who sees Kumiko suffering. Because of this, Reina is determined to help Kumiko become stronger by helping Kumiko get rid of her affinity seeking mentality. After the conversation on the mountain, Kumiko realizes that she wants to become someone like Reina, someone who's prideful, outspoken, and doesn't seek validation from others. It was during this scene that Kumiko realizes that her affinity seeking mentality was holding her back, and that she too can become someone special like Reina. Reina becomes Kumiko's ideal self, and that scene is the beginning of Kumiko's development. After this, Kumiko becomes passionate about playing the euphonium. She starts to find meaning in life through playing the euphonium, and this drives her to work hard. Let's fast forward to the scene right before Reina tries out for the second time to get the solo trumpet role. In this scene, Reina asks Kumiko if she would be disappointed if she intentionally threw the audition so Kaori could win. Kumiko says she would be disappointed, and she says this for a few reasons. 1. Her idealism. To Kumiko, Reina is someone who's special, someone who never conforms to other people's standards or seeks validation from others. So if Reina were to throw the audition, she would be completely going against Kumiko's ideal of her. 2. Kumiko knows that Reina is better than Kaori. Kumiko acknowledges that if Reina were to intentionally lose just to appeal to the feelings of Kaori and the other band members, she would be holding herself back from becoming great. By projecting her feelings to Reina, Kumiko realizes that her own affinity-seeking mentality is stupid and that she's been holding herself back this whole time. Another reason this sequence is really cool is that it shows Kumiko actively going against her affinity-seeking mentality. She said that even if Reina becomes a villain, she would still support her, even if that means she's also seen as a villain. Furthermore, Kumiko stays true to her word and votes for Reina, even though it means potentially being seen negatively by other people. This displays how Kumiko is learning not to care about what other people think about her. Let's fast forward to another sequence. The iconic scene where Kumiko yells, "I want to improve!" is so important because it displays Kumiko's growth. At the beginning of the show, Kumiko was an apatheist. She didn't care about what instrument she played, and she only joined the wind ensemble because her friends were doing it. However, as Kumiko interacts with Reina more, she starts to find herself. Kumiko attaches her identity to music and becomes more passionate and driven. That's why getting cut from the verse is so painful to her, because music is her, and failing in anything you're passionate about is painful. Now let's talk about Kumiko in Season 2. In Season 2, we start to see a lot of changes in Kumiko. She stopped affinity seeking as much, which leads to her becoming more honest and assertive with herself and other people. A great example of this is the scene where Nozomi asks Kumiko why she, as a first year, is playing over Natsuki, her senior. And Kumiko is clearly able to say that's because she's better and better players get chosen in the ensemble. If this was Kumiko at the beginning of Season 1, she probably would have said Natsuki's better and come up with some BS. Kumiko's development in Season 2 is portrayed mostly through her dynamics with other characters, so let's get right into that. Kumiko and Mamiko. Kumiko and Mamiko parallel through affinity seeking. Kumiko is an affinity seeker because she was scared to show her true self, so instead she would put on a facade and conform to other people's standards. Mamiko was an affinity seeker in her relationship with her parents. She always did what they wanted, but never thought about her own self-interest. We see this through her choosing to go to university instead of pursuing her own passions. Let's talk about Mamiko's mental state and characterization. Mamiko always played into this stoic persona, acting like everything was okay, and just followed the destiny her parents created for her. Because Mamiko never did what she actually wanted to do in life, she becomes very regretful and discontent with her life. Mamiko often uses projection as a coping mechanism. She criticizes Kumiko's decision to join the ensemble because she wishes that she didn't quit. She hates wind ensemble music because she hates herself for quitting the ensemble. Furthermore, Mamiko is just very dishonest with herself. When Mamiko first tells her parents that she's dropping out of college, she doesn't give them a real reason why. She tries playing into her stoic and adult persona, acting like everything's alright, when she's really upset and angry, as we see with her projection. Kumiko doesn't understand Mamiko's mentality. How can she say that she regrets quitting yet hate the sound of music? How can Mamiko blame her parents over a decision that she made? Kumiko thinks it's stupid how Mamiko can be so dishonest to everyone just because she's trying to act like an adult. If Mamiko had just said what she truly wanted from the beginning, she wouldn't be dealing with most of her problems. Kumiko firmly believes that people have the power to choose their own destiny. She also believes that it's important for people to act in their own self-interest. That's why she doesn't understand Mamiko's behavior and is often critical of it. That's also why Kumiko is so upset that Asuka is just walking away from the competition when she clearly wants to participate. These interactions between Kumiko and Mamiko display Kumiko's ideology in Season 2. She believes that people have control over their own lives. We'll see these beliefs and this dynamic come into play when we look at Kumiko's relationship with Asuka. Let's get into Asuka and Kumiko's dynamic. Like Mamiko, one way that Asuka and Kumiko parallel is through Affinity Seeking. Asuka is an Affinity Seeker because she's always acting to keep others happy. Asuka feels indebted to her mother and always conforms to her rules and standards. Even within the ensemble, Asuka takes on the burden of being this perfect role model and leader and continues to hold that image even with the adversity that she faces in life. Alright guys, so quick side note, I have a full in-depth analysis of Asuka on my TikTok and Instagram, which I'll link in the description, but since I'm discussing Kumiko in this video, I won't really go into depth about Asuka. So if you want to look into Asuka's character, check out my analysis and I'll link them down below. I want to talk about the scene where Kumiko begs Asuka to rejoin the ensemble, but before we get to that, let's backtrack and talk about Asuka's character a bit. In the lead up to that scene, we see Asuka in quite a difficult predicament. The mental stress from both her mother and the ensemble puts Asuka in a position where she doesn't know what to do. Would it be selfish for her to find her own path and go against her mother, or would it be selfish for her to abandon her friends even when she knows they need her? As always, Asuka wants to keep both sides happy, but in this case there isn't a clear way to do that. In the end, Asuka chooses to run away from her problems and just do what her mother wants because it's the easiest way out. She can rationalize this decision by saying, "I've skipped so much practice, Natsuki really wanted the role, etc., and by continuing to play into her stoic persona." Let's fast forward back to Kumiko's confrontation with Asuka. This scene is so great because it's pretty much the climax of everything I've said earlier about Asuka. Kumiko confronts Asuka because she wants her to play at nationals. Asuka continues to run away from her problems, saying that the ensemble would be so much better without her. Asuka is in such a big state of denial that she even resorts to insulting Kumiko, pointing out that Kumiko's scared of getting hurt and no one would be honest around someone like her. Now Kumiko sees through this facade completely and tells Asuka what she needed to hear this whole time. That's okay to be selfish. That she didn't have to carry the burden of being perfect or conforming to her mother's regulations. That Asuka should just be honest with herself and do what she really wants for once. One of the reasons that Kumiko was so set on saving Asuka is because Asuka is like her sister. Both Asuka and Mamiko are put in situations where they felt like they had no say in their lives and were constrained by the will of their parents. Both put up a stoic persona and never acted in their own self-interest. Kumiko saw how badly Mamiko regretted her past decisions, and she couldn't stand to see Asuka go through the same regret. I think Kumiko also regrets not being able to save Mamiko, so now that she had the opportunity to help Asuka, there's no way she wouldn't do everything she could to help her. Asuka and Kumiko have a deep mutual respect for each other. They both represent each other's ideal self in a way. Kumiko wants to become someone special, just like Asuka. She wants to become someone who can play the Euphonium at a high level and be the best. One of the reasons that Asuka is so fond of Kumiko is because of her honesty and assertiveness. Asuka is someone who struggles to be honest with herself and other people. Kumiko used to be the same way, but she starts to grow past that part of her identity. Not only does Kumiko start to be more honest with other people, but she also starts to become more honest with herself. It's the same honesty and assertiveness that Kumiko uses to convince Asuka to stay in the ensemble, which makes Asuka admire her so much more. Another reason that Asuka is so fond of Kumiko is because Kumiko is the only person who really cared for her and understood her. Kumiko saw Asuka's situation and was the only person who told her that she didn't need to carry this burden of being perfect or conforming to her mother's standards, and that really resonated with her. Lastly, Kumiko was the one person who kept trying to save Asuka, even when she was shutting down everyone. This shows how much Kumiko really cares about Asuka, and it really made Asuka appreciate her so much more. The three-way dynamic between Kumiko, Asuka, and Mamiko is so well executed, and I like how it teaches the audience the importance of doing what you want to do in life instead of letting other people like parents or classmates control your journey. Now that I've covered Kumiko and Asuka's dynamic, let's move on to what I see as one of the most underrated dynamics in the series, Kumiko and Kanade. Kanade is introduced in the Sound Euphonium movie Our Promise, A Brand New Day. And even though the movie is short, I think it has one of the most powerful scenes in the series. The scene where Kumiko convinces Kanade to try her best during the auditions. To understand what makes this scene so great, we need to understand Kumiko and Kanade's dynamic and the different philosophies and ideologies that both characters represent. First, let's look at how they parallel. Kanade and Kumiko are very similar. Both went through traumatic experiences in middle school where they were bullied for showing their musical talents. As a result, both of them formed affinity seeking facades where they would always try and get validation from other people. Despite their parallels, Kumiko and Kanade hold different views on life. Nihilism is a philosophy that is associated with viewing life as meaningless. Kanade has a very nihilistic view on life. When Kumiko confronts Kanade about her not trying in the audition, Kanade brings up how there's no point in doing so. Even if she got the role, they would end up failing and it would be her fault in the end. Everything she worked for would just end up in meaningless failure. So why even try in the first place? Why not save yourself the pain of meaningless failure? Kumiko's views are completely opposite to Kanade's. She believes that you should work hard, try your best, and strive for greatness. Kumiko accepts that many people who work hard don't achieve results. However, she believes that if you keep trying every day, take the right steps, and keep putting in effort, eventually you'll find some sort of meaning and fulfillment. Kumiko's views align with a philosophy called existentialism. Existentialism is the belief that we have the freedom to control our own lives and is often associated with finding meaning in our existence. What makes Kanade and Kumiko's sequence so good is that it shows how much Kumiko has developed. Kanade is a reflection of Kumiko's past self. Kumiko used to constantly seek validation from others. Although her view on life wasn't nihilistic, it was very apathetic and realist. She had no interest in dreaming or working hard to achieve any goals. However, after Kumiko meets Reina and starts to find herself again, her views start to change. She begins to find value in playing the Euphonium, regardless of the validation she gets from others, and her views on life become more idealistic and hopeful. That's why Kumiko can empathize with Kanade. She knows what it's like to suffer from affinity seeking and apatheism. However, she also knows what it's like to find meaning in life. Another thing that makes this scene so great is it shows Kumiko reflecting on her life and her journey. She accepts her affinity seeking self as part of her identity, even though she's always tried to hide it or deny it. She declares that she wants to become a great Euphonium player, when in season 2 she was indecisive about her future. It's almost like in this moment, she truly found herself and had truly come to terms with who she is and what she wants in life. That's why this sequence is my favorite in the series. It serves as a true reflection of Kumiko and her journey towards becoming a stronger and more driven person. And well, guys, this is probably as far as I go with this analysis, considering that Our Promise, A Brand New Day is where the anime leaves off. By the time you're watching this, the Ensemble Contest movie has probably been released, and maybe even Season 3 has been released too. But before I end this video, let's go over some key takeaways from Kumiko's character, as well as some final thoughts. So these are my 2 biggest takeaways from Kumiko's character. 1. We determine our own path in life. No matter what our parents say or what other people think, it's our responsibility to chase our own dreams. 2. Affinity seeking is stupid and holds us back from achieving our goals. It's important to be your true self and act in your own self-interest, or else you'll always be a shell of yourself and never live up to your true potential. So just some quick final thoughts. 1, I genuinely think Kumiko is one of the best main characters in anime just because of how well-rounded she is as a character. Her character journey is amazing, she has so many meaningful dynamics, her portrayal of existentialism is great, she just does everything so well, and I really can't think of any character flaws that she has. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video. This is my first ever analytical video like this, so please leave me some feedback, let me know how I sounded, let me know if the editing was good, and let me know if there's anything else that you guys would add to the analysis. Now, I'll leave my socials as well as my other links to my other analysis in the description, But yeah, take care, have a nice day, and like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.